I want to share something incredible that happened during a live event with well-known psychic medium John Edward, where I believe the spirit of my great aunt came through for me, but someone else claimed it. And what's even more fascinating is I may have unknowingly set it all in motion just a few minutes before John walked on stage. It's a remarkable story about how spirit energy transcends time and space. My mother's aunt, my great aunt, who is pictured here on the far right, was murdered 93 years ago at the young age of 24 by her fiancé, who shot her and then himself. This is my beautiful aunt. My grandmother, pictured here third from the right, never stopped grieving the untimely death of her beautiful sister. She would relive that horrific scene countless times over the years, telling us how all of our aunt's fingernails were bitten back to the skin, a sign of the terror she felt in those final moments. We grew up next door to my grandmother, so we were close in every sense of the word. And after she passed, her energy never left me. She often appears to me in apparitions, such as this one. The newspaper said my aunt's murder was part of a suicide pact, which wasn't true. On September 20th, 1932, she had met her fiancé in a hotel room in Chicago with the intention of breaking up with him. He had other plans. It was clear he had premeditated a murder-suicide, as a farewell note for his mother was found in the hotel room. As we were waiting for John to begin, my friend was telling me about an object of hers that holds spiritual energy. This reminded me of a strand of pearls my mother gave to me decades ago that belonged to her aunt who was murdered. As soon as she handed them to me, I could feel my aunt's energy so strongly that I got a vision of her dancing with her beautiful long strand of pearls swinging from side to side as she moved. The man who murdered her was a drummer in a big band. Just before John came out, I told my friend about the spiritual energy I felt in my aunt's pearls and how she was murdered. But what I didn't realize was that by telling that story, I was releasing my aunt's energy into the room, and John picked it up. He came out and gave a brief introduction. Then he walked over to the side section where we were seated and said, "Where is the Lynda in this section who had someone murdered by gunshot?" I froze. That was my aunt I had just been talking about. My friend and I looked at each other completely awestruck. It was such a surreal moment that it took me a few seconds to process what had just happened. I raised my hand, and at the same time, a woman in front shouted out, "That's for me." She said her name was Lynn, not Lynda, and it was a neighbor's son who was shot, not a relative or a loved one. I then looked down and saw a white letter J on the floor. A J in white light is a sign I often receive from my mom, like this one, which is the initial of her first name. My mom was there telling me that this message was meant for me. Our ticket showed our seats were in row K, but the usher who escorted us to our seats must have misdirected us to row J, which enabled me to get that message from my mom. But Spirit wasn't done reaching out. When I got home, I saw this apparition on the wall, but it wasn't anyone I recognized. It felt connected to what had just happened. Was this my aunt or another spirit drawn in by the energy I had unknowingly set in motion? This experience taught me something powerful. When we speak about our loved ones in spirit, we awaken their energy. When we speak their names, share their stories, and open our hearts, they respond. I didn't get a reading from John Edward that day, but I did receive something meaningful. Validation that my aunt and my mother heard me and are still with me. Their energy transcends time, space, and even generations. This event was just one of many moments where Spirit has made its presence known in my life. And since that day, I've received even more signs. When we pay attention, the connections are there. We just have to be open to seeing them. Next week, I'll be sharing a collection of unknown spirits. Who are they? What do they have to say to me? Stay tuned to find out.